An immigrant shared her lunch with a hungry man. Oblivious, he was the CEO of her dream company. The simple act that would change her life forever happened on an ordinary Tuesday, when the sky hung low and gray over the city, matching Elena Vasquez's mood as she huddled on the park bench, her thin jacket barely keeping the autumn chill at bay. Elena unwrapped her modest lunch, a homemade empanada and thermos of soup, her fingers stiff from the cold. 6 months in America, and still the city felt foreign, its towering buildings and hurried people a constant reminder of how small she was, how far from home. The rejection letter from Horizon Innovations lay folded in her pocket, the third such letter this month. Her engineering degree from her home country meant little here, it seemed. She closed her eyes, inhaling the familiar scent of her mother's recipe. For a moment, she was back home, the spices and warmth wrapping around her like an embrace. When she opened them again, she noticed a man sitting at the far end of her bench, staring at nothing in particular. There was something about him that didn't quite fit. His clothes were expensive, she could tell even through the rumpled appearance, but his face bore the hollow look of someone who hadn't eaten in days. His salt and pepper hair was disheveled, his shoulders slumped as if carrying an invisible weight. Elena felt a familiar tug in her chest. Her abuela had always said you could measure a person's worth by what they gave when they had little to give. She hesitated only a moment before sliding down the bench. "Would you like half?" she asked, her accent still thick despite months of practice. The man turned, surprise registering in eyes that were a startling blue against his weathered face. He blinked as if coming out of a trance. No, I couldn't possibly," Elena smiled, already breaking the empanada in two. "Please. My grandmother made enough for an army. I insist." A lie. She had made it herself, and it was meant to be her dinner as well. But something in his eyes reminded her of herself. Lost. Alone. After a moment's hesitation, he accepted, their fingers brushing briefly. His hands were ice cold. "Thank you," he said, his voice quiet but cultured. "It's been a difficult day." They ate in silence for a while, steam rising from the soup she'd poured into the thermos cap for him. Elena watched from the corner of her eye as color slowly returned to his face. "This is delicious," he said eventually. "Family recipe?" Elena nodded, unexpected warmth blooming in her chest at the simple compliment. "My abuela's. She taught me before I left." She hesitated, then added, "I'm Elena." "James," he replied, not offering a last name. "You're not from here originally." It wasn't a question, but Elena answered anyway. "Venezuela. 6 months in America." She gestured vaguely toward the skyline. "Still trying to find my place." "What brought you here?" The question was gentle, curious without being invasive. Elena took a breath, weighing how much to share with this stranger. "Engineering degree. Dreams of working for a company that matters." A sad smile touched her lips. "Reality of cleaning office buildings at night while sending out applications during the day." James nodded, something shifting in his expression. "Dreams are important. They keep us going when reality is—" He trailed off, looking down at the remaining bits of empanada in his hand. "Difficult." Elena finished for him. Their eyes met, a moment of perfect understanding passing between them. Two strangers connected by something more profound than shared food. "What do you dream of, James?" she asked, surprising herself with her boldness. He looked startled, as if no one had asked him that question in a very long time. "I used to dream of changing the world through innovation." A hollow laugh escaped him. Now I'd settle for recognizing the man in the mirror. Before Elena could respond, his phone rang. The transformation was immediate. His posture straightened, his expression closed off. He answered with a clipped "yes" and listened, his jaw tightening. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he said finally, ending the call. He stood, brushing crumbs from his coat. "Thank you, Elena, for the food and the reminder." Reminder? His smile was small but genuine. That kindness still exists, even from strangers. He reached into his pocket, but Elena raised her hand. "No money. It was just lunch." Something like respect flickered in his eyes. "Then I'm in your debt." He hesitated, then pulled out a business card instead. "If you ever need anything." Elena took it automatically, not looking at it as she slipped it into her jacket. "Good luck, James. I hope tomorrow is better." He nodded once, a formal gesture at odds with the intimate moment they'd shared, then walked away, soon disappearing among the crowd of business people returning from lunch. Elena gathered her things, the rejection letter still heavy in her pocket. But somehow the weight felt a little lighter, the cold a little less biting. She had made a connection, however brief, in this vast, indifferent city. For today, that was enough. It wasn't until that evening, as she emptied her pockets before her night shift, that Elena finally looked at the business card. The breath caught in her throat as she read the embossed lettering, James Harrington, Chief Executive Officer, Horizon Innovations. The room seemed to tilt around her. Horizon Innovations, the very company that had rejected her application just yesterday, and she had shared her lunch with its CEO, completely unaware. Elena sank onto the edge of her bed, the card trembling between her fingers. What did this mean? Was it mere coincidence or something more? The card bore his direct line, something she imagined few people possessed. But what would she say? Remember me, the immigrant who gave you half an empanada? Perhaps you could reconsider my application? The absurdity of it made her laugh, a slightly hysterical sound in her empty apartment. No, she wouldn't call. Pride was sometimes all one had in a foreign land. She tucked the card carefully into her bedside drawer and headed to work, the night stretching endlessly before her. At exactly 7:42 the next morning, as Elena was leaving the office building she had spent the night cleaning, her phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but something made her answer. Elena Vasquez? The voice was female, crisp and professional. Yes, this is she. This is Margaret Chen, Head of Human Resources at Horizon Innovations. We'd like you to come in for an interview this morning at 10 a.m. Is that possible? Elena froze on the sidewalk, people flowing around her like a river around a stone. Yes. Yes, of course. Excellent. Please ask for me at reception. The woman paused. And Miss Vasquez? Bring your portfolio. Mr. Harrington specifically requested to see your previous engineering projects. The call ended before Elena could respond. She stood motionless, her mind racing. James, Mr. Harrington, had recognized her name from her application. He was giving her a chance because she had shared her lunch. Was this pity? Obligation? Either way, could she refuse such an opportunity? She had 3 hours to go home, shower away the smell of industrial cleaning products, change into her one interview outfit, and somehow prepare for an interview she had given up hope of ever getting. By 9:45, Elena stood before the gleaming headquarters of Horizon Innovations, a portfolio tucked under her arm, her heart hammering against her ribs. The building soared upward, all glass and steel, reflecting the morning sky. She had passed it many times, dreaming of working inside, never imagining she would be here because she had shared an empanada with a stranger. The receptionist smiled politely when Elena gave her name. Ms. Chen is expecting you. 15th floor. The elevator ride gave Elena precious moments to collect herself, to practice the English phrases she had rehearsed in her bathroom mirror. When the doors opened, a woman in a tailored suit was waiting. Ms. Vasquez? I'm Margaret Chen. She extended her hand, her grip firm and professional. Thank you for coming on such short notice. Elena followed her through an open-concept office space, acutely aware of curious glances from employees. They stopped at a conference room where 3 people waited, 2 men and a woman, all with the polished look of executives. But no James Harrington. The interview proceeded normally at first. They asked about her education, her experience, the projects in her portfolio. Elena's initial nervousness faded as she spoke about her work, her passion for sustainable engineering solutions evident in every word. These are impressive credentials, said one of the men, studying her resume. I'm curious, why haven't we brought you in before? Elena hesitated. I received a rejection letter just 2 days ago. The executives exchanged glances. The woman cleared her throat. That's unusual, particularly given Mr. Harrington's interest in your application. Before Elena could respond, the door opened. James Harrington walked in, now impeccably dressed in a suit that probably cost more than Elena's rent. His eyes met hers briefly, a flicker of recognition passing between them, but his face remained professionally neutral. Sorry I'm late. Please continue. He took a seat at the head of the table. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly. Elena felt the weight of new scrutiny as the questioning continued, now directed more specifically toward how her background might benefit Horizon's latest sustainability initiative. An hour later, Margaret Chen led Elena back to the elevator. We'll be in touch very soon, Ms. Vasquez. Thank you for coming in. Elena nodded, still processing the surreal experience. As the elevator doors began to close, a hand shot out to stop them. James Harrington stepped in, pressing the button for the lobby. They stood in silence as the elevator descended, tension filling the small space. Finally, he spoke. You didn't use my card. Elena met his gaze steadily. No. May I ask why? She considered her words carefully. I wanted to earn my place, not be given it because I shared my lunch. Something like respect flickered in his eyes. The interview wasn't charity, Ms. Vasquez. Your application caught my attention when I reviewed some recently rejected candidates last night. He paused. After our encounter, I was curious about what I might have missed. The elevator reached the lobby. As the doors opened, he held out his hand. It was a pleasure to formally meet you, Elena Vasquez. I look forward to seeing what you bring to Horizon Innovations. Elena's eyes widened. Does that mean Margaret will call you this afternoon with details? A ghost of a smile touched his lips. We need engineers who see solutions where others see only problems, who recognize humanity in strangers. He stepped out of the elevator, then turned back. And Elena? That empanada was the best thing I've eaten in months. Thank you. 3 months later, Elena stood before a whiteboard in Horizon's Innovation Lab, explaining her design modifications to a team of engineers. Her English was still accented but more confident now, her gestures animated as she described how her adjustments would reduce energy consumption by an additional 12%. Excellent work, Ms. Vasquez, said James, Mr. Harrington, as she still called him professionally, from the doorway. He had been different since that day in the park, according to office whispers. More present, more engaged. The hollowness she had seen in his eyes that day appeared less frequently. Thank you, sir. She nodded, professional but warm. If you have a moment? He gestured toward the hallway. They walked together toward the large windows overlooking the city. Elena no longer felt small before the skyline. She was part of it now, helping shape its future. The board approved your sustainability initiative, he said. Full funding, effective immediately. You'll lead the project team. Elena's breath caught. I don't know what to say. Thank you for the opportunity. You earned it. He turned to face her. But there's something else I wanted to discuss. Something more personal. Elena waited, curious. That day in the park. His voice softened. I was at my lowest point. The board was threatening to remove me. My wife had left the week before. I hadn't eaten in 2 days, not from lack of means but lack of will. He gazed out at the city. I was contemplating ending it all. Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the office temperature. Your simple act of kindness? His voice caught. It reminded me that connection matters more than position. That seeing people, truly seeing them, is what I had lost sight of. He turned back to her. You didn't just share your lunch, Elena. You saved my life. Tears pricked at Elena's eyes. I had no idea. How could you? His smile was gentle. But it's why I started the company-wide initiative I wanted to tell you about. Breaking Bread. Once a month, employees at all levels share meals together. No hierarchy, no agenda except human connection. Elena thought of her first days at Horizon, how the other engineers had welcomed her, how even the most senior staff had made time to mentor her. The company culture that had seemed so warm compared to the cold rejection she had initially received. The first lunch is tomorrow, James continued. I'd be honored if you would bring one of your empanadas, to remind us all how something so simple can change everything. Elena smiled, thinking of her abuela's recipe, now written carefully in her own hand, of the ingredients waiting in her apartment, in her new apartment, in a safer neighborhood, afforded by her Horizon salary. It would be my pleasure, she said, the words carrying the weight of all that had changed. As they stood together looking out over the city, Elena realized that the greatest innovation at Horizon wasn't happening in the labs or the research facilities. It was happening in the spaces between people, in shared meals, in moments of kindness, in the recognition of another's humanity. That night, as Elena prepared the dough for dozens of empanadas, her hands moving in the familiar rhythm taught by her grandmother, she thought about how life changes in the most unexpected ways. 6 months ago, she had been cleaning offices at night, holding her dreams close like precious, fragile things. Now those dreams were unfolding in ways she could never have imagined. Her phone chimed with a text from her mother. So proud of you, mijija. Your abuela is smiling down from heaven. Elena smiled, wiping flour from her hands. The apartment was warm with the scent of baking, no longer empty but filled with possibility. Tomorrow, she would share her heritage, her story, her food with her colleagues, not as an outsider looking in, but as someone who belonged. The simplest acts, she had learned, often carried the most profound consequences. A shared lunch, a moment of connection. Sometimes that was all it took to change a life, or save one. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, it changed not just one life, but many. like ripples spreading outward from a single stone dropped into still water, touching shores you might never see. 1 year later, Elena stood at a podium, accepting Horizon Innovation's Employee of the Year award. The sustainability project she had spearheaded had exceeded all projections, earning both industry recognition and substantial profits for the company. James Harrington, now James to her after months of collaboration, stood to the side, applauding with genuine pride. His own transformation had been remarkable. The board that had once threatened to remove him now celebrated his renewed vision for the company. Horizon's Breaking Bread initiative had become a case study in corporate culture transformation, featured in business magazines and copied by competitors. "I want to thank everyone who believed in this project," Elena said into the microphone, her accent still present but no longer a source of self-consciousness. "But most importantly, I want to thank everyone who has shared a meal with me this past year." Laughter rippled through the audience. Elena's empanadas had become legendary at company events. "In my culture, food is how we show love, how we build community, how we welcome strangers and turn them into family." Her eyes found James briefly. "A year ago, I was a stranger in this city, in this country. Today, I stand before you not as a stranger, but as part of something greater than myself." She held up the Crystal Award. "This recognition is beautiful, but the true reward has been watching how a simple idea, that we are stronger when we see each other's humanity, has transformed not just our company, but our impact on the world." The crowd rose in a standing ovation as Elena stepped away from the podium. As she made her way back to her seat, she passed the table where new immigrants to the company sat, part of a recruitment initiative she had helped create, targeting talented engineers from underrepresented countries and backgrounds. Their eyes shone with the same hope she had carried when she first arrived, the same dreams, the same determination. They saw in her what was possible, just as she had once looked up at the gleaming Horizon building and imagined herself inside. At the reception afterward, James found her by the windows, looking out at the night sky. "Congratulations," he said, handing her a glass of champagne. "You've accomplished more in 1 year than most do in a career." Elena smiled. "We accomplished it together." "No." He shook his head. "You showed us the way. I just had the good sense to follow." They stood in comfortable silence, watching the city lights below. "I received a letter today," Elena said finally. "My mother's visa was approved. She arrives next month." James's face lit up. "That's wonderful news. Will she be staying with you?" Elena nodded. "For 3 months. She's bringing my abuela's old recipe book." She laughed softly. "She says I've been improvising the empanadas wrong." "I find that hard to believe," James said with a smile. "But I look forward to a taste test." The party continued around them, colleagues and friends celebrating not just Elena's achievement, but the company's evolution. What had begun with a shared lunch on a park bench had grown into something neither of them could have imagined that gray autumn day. "Do you ever think about it?" Elena asked suddenly. "How differently things might have turned out if we hadn't met that day." James's expression grew serious. "Every day." He looked down at his glass. "I was at the end of my rope. The company I had built was slipping away from me. My personal life was in shambles." He met her gaze. "But what haunts me more is how many Elenas I must have walked past before that day. How many brilliant minds, how many kind souls I failed to see because I was too wrapped up in my own world." "We can't see everyone," Elena said gently. "No," he agreed. "But we can try to see more, to be more present. That's the real lesson I learned from you." He raised his glass. "To seeing each other. Truly seeing. To seeing each other," she echoed, touching her glass to his. As the night wound down, Elena found herself surrounded by her team. Young engineers from a dozen different countries, all brought together under Horizon's expanded recruitment program. They were laughing, sharing stories of their homelands, planning the next Breaking Bread event. This, she realized, was what success truly looked like. Not just the award or the promotion or the salary increase, though those things mattered, but this community, this belonging, this shared purpose. She watched as James joined another group, listening intently to a young man describing a technical challenge with genuine interest. The CEO, who had once seemed so isolated, so burdened, now moved through the room with ease, connecting, engaging, present. They had saved each other in different ways. Her simple act of kindness had pulled him back from the brink. His recognition of her potential had given her the opportunity to fulfill it, and together they had created something that was changing lives far beyond their own. As Elena prepared to leave, gathering her award and her coat, James approached one last time. "I have something for you," he said, handing her a small wrapped package. Elena opened it curiously. Inside was a beautifully crafted silver pin in the shape of an empanada. "To remind you," he said quietly, "that the smallest actions can change the world." Elena closed her fingers around the pin, emotion welling in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. Outside, the night was cold but clear, stars visible despite the city lights. Elena walked toward the subway, the weight of the award in her bag and the pin fastened to her lapel. A year ago, she had been a stranger in a strange land, holding tight to dreams that seemed increasingly impossible. Tonight, she walked as someone who had found her place, not just in a company, but in a community, in a purpose larger than herself. All because on a cold autumn day, she had shared her lunch with a hungry man. Life, Elena had learned, turned on such moments. Small kindnesses, unexpected connections, the courage to see another person's humanity, and the wisdom to recognize your own. As she descended into the subway, she passed a young woman sitting alone on a bench, clutching a portfolio similar to the one Elena had brought to her interview a year ago. Their eyes met briefly, the woman's tired but determined, Elena's understanding and warm. "Excuse me," Elena said, changing direction. "Is that seat taken?" The woman shook her head. Elena sat down beside her. "I'm Elena," she said, extending her hand. "Would you like half of my sandwich? My mother made enough for an army." The truth was, she had made it herself, using her abuela's recipe. But some traditions, like some stories, were meant to be passed on. Because you never knew when a shared meal might change a life, or save one, or transform many. In the end, that was the greatest innovation of all.